Hello, my name is Clara Kebabian, and I'm the Clinical Project Director from Mirum Pharmaceuticals. I want to say thank you to PharmaCon Global for inviting me today to present at the Rare DIEM Virtual Summit for 2025. I'm here today to talk about trekking into the jungle for a rare patient, a case study in Brazil. Next slide, please. Before I get into the case study, I want to just highlight briefly a little bit about the elements needed for clinical trial success in Latin America. I would summarize that down to 3 Ps: patients, principal investigators and their site staff, and planning. Next slide. But before I go into that piece, maybe the better question is, why Latin America? And as you can see here, there's 3 main points that have strong, compelling need in Latin America for participation for clinical trials. One, there's significant unmet need for patients in the region. The advocacy group echoes that significant need by amplifying the voices of the families. And in the case of Mirum, there are few to no treatments in rare liver indications. Next slide, please. So first, patients. There are 3 things that being under consideration for success. One, identifying the patients, working with sites, being able to screen properly. Secondly, meeting patients and their families where they are. And by that, it's appreciating the challenges. They may have limited exposure to clinical trials. So ultimately, lowering the bar to have them and make it as easy as possible for them to be able to participate in clinical trials. And ultimately, that also a big chunk of that translates to travel logistics, as in being able to help manage, pay, cover that element, and ensure it is again easy as possible for them to be able to get to the site to participate. Next slide. The second piece: principal investigators and site staff. And there are 3 things to consider here: experience level, staffing support, and feast or famine. And I'll talk a little bit about both, or all of these, excuse me. The first is experience level. Of course, you want to make sure that you have investigators that have adequate experience, or if they are new to clinical trials, that they have adequate support and have training to be able to conduct clinical trials. In both cases, you need to make sure that they have staffing support, that you have adequate people that are there who are trained, be it their study coordinator, pharmacist, phlebotomist, making sure everyone down the line, again, knows their roles, clear on the roles, and being able to support the very important work that's going on in clinical trials. And the third point here is feast or famine in regards to principal investigators and site staff. In Latin America particularly, there are a lot of opportunities for clinical trials. But the point is, how do you get your attention? How do you get folks' attention to participate? That is through good relationships with the principal investigators, making sure there's good open channels of communication, and being able to essentially work to keep your study top of mind. Next slide, please. The third P, I would say, is planning. And specifically, as you can see, there are 4 elements under that: regulatory activity, importation of materials to country, be it drug or other materials, country insurance, and lab sample collection processing. In the case of regulatory activity, that everyone is clear as to what is necessary and needed in getting set up, started, what approvals, what government agencies, and what order of government agencies approvals are needed, be it local, be it central. Is there someone who has to go first? Is there a site that has to be first to get approved before everyone else can be approved? In the case of importation of materials to country, again, of course, drugs, but that extends as well to binders, study binders. You have an ePro system. Are those devices shipping in? Do you have a customs agent that is effective, that can get things through? Lab kits, all those different elements. Country insurance, that you have the adequate level of country insurance that's again, dependent upon by country. And then with the lab sample collection and processing, it's taking into consideration, particularly seasonally, do you need extra dry ice? Do people need to be aware that they need to order it in advance? Does the hospital or the site have access to dry ice? Excluding dry ice, is this a sample that's supposed to be shipped at ambient temperature? So appreciating all those different elements together is very important, and make sure that the staffing that's running the trial is clear as to in each step what's needed. Next slide, please. So again, brings us to the case study. the expedited delivery of drug to a patient. So I wanted to just give the example here of on a particular study that I worked on here at Mirum. We had a situation where on a Friday, midday Eastern, we found out that a patient was going to run out of drug that Saturday, i.e., tomorrow, one day away. Always the best. Friday's always the best time to have these problems pop up. And the family did live a distance away from Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. And as I'm sure many can appreciate, you don't want to have a gap in dosage. So what did we do? The study team across 3 continents for North America, Europe, and South America assembled on Zoom. And it took a while, about 5 hours, but we were able to investigate and come up with a plan and get people aligned to be able to ensure that that drug would get to patient. So, and when I say team, it's the CRAs and project manager in South America. It's making sure the project manager we had the study main project manager out of Europe, and then we have the team in North America as well, all working together to understand who needed to be called, and then working closely together with the site as well, in addition to shipment, to basically work out all the logistics so that could we get the drug moving Friday night in order to have it show up further south in Brazil the next day. And as you can see on the bottom left, the pharmacy staff in Rio did stay on. We were able to catch them and convince them to stay on to ensure that the IP was received by Markin so that it could be picked up by a courier and transported to a plane. And we were able to make that flight the night flight out, and basically successfully got on the plane successfully took off and landed further south, where it was delivered by truck hours away to a port where the family was able to meet the delivery. And the family was traveling by boat more than an hour away from that port in order to get receipt and pickup of the IP. So again, what I would take away from this is, I think looking at the next slide, is that sorry, if we take to the next slide, please. You can see that in the end, the strength of your team is directly contributing to your clinical trial success. In this situation, we were able to scramble everyone and ultimately have no stoppage of treatment. Next slide, please. Again, thank you very much for your time and attention. Again, my name is Clara Kebabian. If you have any questions on what I've presented here today, please do feel free to reach out. And thank you again to Pharmacon for having me here today.